Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of Steelheads Weekly with your hosts, myself, Darius Domingues, and of course, Mark Freitas. Mark, how you doing this week?
Oh, fantastic. Especially a lot of hockey over the weekend for myself, for watching, playing. Too much hockey.
Yeah, you played quite a bit. Actually, you played more than me this weekend, and of course, watching hockey. It was a weekend full of hockey, just not just OHL but NHL as well. The Brampton Steelheads with another so-so performance this weekend. We're gonna dive into it. And Friday night, as we queued up last week, they were playing at home at the CAA Center against the Barrie Colts, which they don't have a great record against. And I was talking a little bit about it, about how the luck is not
No.
on the Steelhead side usually when they play Barrie. But in this one, it seemed like it was on their side, and they ended up winning 5-2. I think it was a closer game than it should have been in
Yeah.
by way of the Steelheads very much outshooting Barrie 38-26. The power play, there are some concerns still that I want to get into there as well, and there's a big overhanging topic I want to get into today as well. And I believe
Mhm.
I've been maybe a bit too harsh on the team, but we'll get to that in a second. But what did you see from this game on Friday? Obviously, a lot to like from Ivan Kovic, and sorry, Barrie outshot the Brampton Steelheads a lot in this game. It was Ivan Kovic that held them in it. I got those mixed up. I said that the Steelheads outshot Barrie, and that's why it should have been a lot closer than it was on the scorecard. But lots to like in this game, Mark.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And once again, they opened up the scoring early in the game. Carson Raycroft just going off again, getting his 10th of the season. Again, assisted by Martone and Misa, which that line's been fantastic as the season's gone on. And another guy we always keep, we've not always, but sorry, we've been discussing about him a lot lately is Jack Van Volson. This
Yep.
this guy is on a tear right now, and it's been great because, like we've been mentioning, they need a lot of depth scoring, and they're getting it. And as well as it came on the power play, which is something that you've talked about,
Yep.
and that was assisted by Martone and Raycroft. And again, probably just putting him in front of the net. Been working, so keep doing what they're doing, and good things are coming.
Yeah, and Luke Misa, again, we talked about him last episode. He's a natural center. Putting him on that first line has really rejuvenated his entire season. He really didn't look that great to start the year, and he's been playing fantastic with two of the best players in the OHL, not just on the Steelheads, but in the OHL. But a couple things to look at in this one, too. Like you mentioned, Van Volson on the power play. He's been great on the power play. You were talking about, put him in front of the net. It's exactly where he was. He scores a nice goal there, gets them on the board. It was 2-0 at that point. Then it was a tie game late in the third, very late in the third. Luke Misa scores a very nice goal, a beautiful passing play from the top line. They take the lead. Zidlicki gets a very well-earned empty netter because he's been working so hard this season. He's been a great player as well for the Steelheads, and he gets the empty netter. Admittedly, I turned it off at this point, and they scored another empty netter, and it was 5-2, and that was Raycroft with his 11th of the season, assisted by Martone, again, getting a couple more points on the season. But they wrapped this one up in a bow. But Mark, there is some concern. They were heavily outshot in this game. Ivan Kovic stands on his head again. He's been great so far this season when he's been playing, because obviously he was suspended a little bit, and he had that one game coming back from suspension where it wasn't too great. But he's been fantastic. I don't know if this is... I don't think this is a style that the Steelheads play. Like, I think when everyone's
No.
healthy, they usually outshoot their opponents, and they're usually driving play. But right now, I don't know if this is sustainable because Ivan Kovic's a great goalie, but there are games where you're going to have to put Gibbons in as well.
Yeah, they need to figure out their offense because they're a high flying offense. They're not sit back and play boring hockey. They're
Yeah.
go go go. But in this case, they're not doing any of that. But it's nice knowing that they have Ivan Kovic back there,
Mhm.
and as well, you don't want to burn him out again because what happens if he does go to the World Juniors? You're gonna go with Gibson, so they have to give Gibson some starts here, especially maybe Friday night would have been good,
Mhm.
because you're playing Brain for the next day. But it's about a rotating process. You again said it last year. You don't want to burn out your goalies. Playoff time, it won't get you anywhere. So they need to start Ivan Kovic in better ways than just keep going, going, going. Because at the end of the day, he's saving them now, but hopefully, come playoff time when it matters, he won't be burnt out.
Yeah. And I think that's something we've seen a lot in Mississauga. Spencer Martin, he was burnt out. He ends up getting injured. That happened. There was Jack Flynn one year. He played 64 of 68 games, and then you get to the first round, and all of a sudden he's tired, and
Yeah.
everyone's looking around wondering why, because he played
They
every
lost that in
single game.
7.
They lost that one in 7. Guys throughout the year, right? There was Jacob Bingham as well. And then in recent years, Leanders got hurt last year. It wasn't his fault. It was a freak accident as well. But you don't want a situation like you said where you lose Ivan Kovic to potentially the World Juniors. I'm not sure if that's going to happen just because he's younger, and we know Team Canada likes their older goaltenders. But if you do lose him for the World Juniors, or maybe there is some fatigue that sets in, you don't want to be giving up 40 shots a night. You just don't.
No.
It's not sustainable.
And again, like they're missing Leskovar. He's one of their big pieces on the defense. Like once they get him back, I think everyone's healthy on the
Yeah, there's
back end.
Carmiers as well on the back end. Yes, yeah.
Carmier, yeah, on the back end, because for him, he's a guy where he's on defense. He clears guys out, and they can kind of do the thing.
Yep.
They have Harding, but there's only so much he could do. That's why you need Stevie and Finn back there. So hopefully he's back soon because they can help out more with generating offense and getting back at where things were at the start of the season.
I think Leskovar, it's a good point that you bring up. Missing him in the lineup, he brings this, not only the physicality, we know that's what he's known for, right? But clearing the front of the net, getting pucks out, right? And just getting it up to the defense, like making sure that you're just doing your job in front, nothing gets through, and then you clear it, and the forwards can go away and play their high-flying offensive style, right? And I think that's something that they're dearly missing right now. Like, he is a huge part of this back end. He is like, he's maybe not the flashiest player like some of the other guys, but he is a big part of the back end. They're sorely missing him right now, and not just him on the back end, but Carmier is up front. He adds
Still out.
He adds depth scoring. We don't really have a timetable on him either, and that's kind of what I was alluding to off the top of the show too. That I think I've been a little bit too harsh on them. Not the power play. The power play and the special teams is bad. That is bad. I'm not talking about that, but I mean 5-on-5 in general. They're missing a lot of key pieces, and it's only going to get worse around the World Juniors. And JR was interviewed, Coach James Richmond, and general manager was interviewed by, I believe it was City News, about the move to Brampton. And he did mention that right now they're dealing with a lot of injuries and adversity, and they're dealing with it right now. And he's glad that it's right now and maybe not later in the season. And I think when they're fully healthy, which looks like probably January. And I'm also taking World Juniors into account because they're going to be missing a few players, right? So come January, I could see them going from January to March and really making a run. But right now, we'll get to it later in the episode too, they're ninth in the East.
It'll be similar to like 2017, where I think they popped off late December, early January. Then obviously we know what happened there.
Yep.
And this isn't where we thought they'd be. We thought they'd be dominating the season, but then again, suspensions and injuries, so it's throwing a wrench in their plans, but they'll figure it out. Who knows? Maybe a trade could be on the way. They need another forward. So we'll see what they could do in the lot at the deadline because there's only about a couple weeks, maybe 2 months left of the deadline.
Yeah, about 2 months at this point, maybe a little bit less. It's like early January, probably second week of January.
Yeah. So there's names out there that they could look into. Like again, Quinton Musty's a guy I'd look into to bolster more of that offense. As for D, maybe grab a guy you could throw in and out of the lineup, and go from there.
Yeah, and I think it's that's a good point that you bring up as well. They still have a lot of assets that they can spend to bring in a difference maker, another difference maker, and not only that, they're injured right now. Yes, it's a little bit of a disappointing, start to the season, I guess, if you want to still say start to this point. Because they're on the outside looking in at the playoffs right now. So a little bit of a disappointing start. But they can still add another difference maker at the deadline. They're going to get guys back from injury. And once the World Juniors are done, everybody's back and they're ready to rock. So it could be another like 2017 situation where they go from last to second or something like that, make it in the playoffs, and they run through everybody. It's possible. But they do have assets still that they can go out and get another big fish, no pun intended.
Yeah, no, and I think that's what will happen. But these guys got to start generating wins. I mean, your Kingston sits up first at 28 points. They have 19. And if you go in a little heater here, you're jumping over teams and you're not that far out. It's all like point difference
Yep.
by like a point or two, and we'll see what they could do. They have a big weekend coming up.
And we're going to get into that weekend. They have
Yep.
another two games coming up, but we're going to get into one of the games from last weekend real quick. But they have two games coming up this weekend. They can make up a lot of ground. Like you said, they can jump from ninth to fifth if they have a good weekend, depending on what happens. So they can get right back into it because it isn't a huge point discrepancy. But from ninth to first right now, they are losing ground. They need to start making up some ground here. So
Yeah, and Saturday didn't help after they blew that lead, which we'll get into.
yes, and then Saturday again, that top line starting strong. That is one thing that they do really well. They scored just seconds
Yes.
into the game again, so it was 1-0 Steelheads early, and then it was 2-0 Steelheads, and Luke Misa again gets on the board. He's been great, but then Brantford just takes over. They outshoot the Steelheads again, and this is what I've been talking about. That Ivan Kovic plays again in this game, and he didn't have a crazy workload. It wasn't an insane workload, I guess, but. But it's a lot of shots, and you're being outshot, and the other team is dictating play. And this is another team in Brantford that isn't like they're only sixth in the conference. This is not a powerhouse team, right? You should be able to beat a team like this. So a little bit concerning in that way, and the game was kind of taken over from there. Not too much to like. Again, the power play in this one, 0 for 2. They've been struggling on the power play. This is a weapon, their power play, that they should be able to use to get back into games like this, even when they're injured and they're not using it.
No, because again, they always look for the perfect pass, and I don't know what it is. Just throw it on net. They're not doing any of that.
Yeah.
It's like I said, it's the same thing. Just throw stuff on net. I look for the pass. Good things happen, but yeah, we'll see if they change anything.
They are looking
They
at
need
times. I don't know. I don't think it's a coaching thing. I think it might be the personnel where they're really looking for that perfect play. Where in reality, like you said, just toss it on the net, right? See what happens.
Yeah.
The Leafs in the NHL, I keep drawing comparisons to that. That's what changed everything for them. They just started throwing it on net, and they're generating all these chances all of a sudden. So we'll see if anything changes, but they got to stop looking for the perfect plays and just put the puck on net and hopefully in the net.
Yeah, that's all they need to do. But I feel that things are changing and things will get better as we go along. Especially maybe have a big December before guys leave, go on a little bit of a run before
Yep.
you're going to be missing Raycroft. He's going to be gone Team Canada. So um, we'll see what they do. Hopefully they get things going before these guys leave.
They'll be missing a couple guys. I think even Fibberger might be on his way as well to the World
Yeah,
Juniors.
we keep forgetting about that. Not just Team Canada.
It's not just Team Canada. Zidlicki, right? I think he was missing last year too. So there's a
Right,
lot
you
of
won a
guys.
bronze.
Yeah, if there's injury still, Carmiers is still out. This is going to be a very thin lineup for a couple of weeks here. So they have to pick up wins here because you don't want to be in last place when they come back from the World Juniors because that's a real possibility right now. Although maybe not last place. I mean, Peterborough is pretty. 6 points, so it'd be tough to be at last. But but no disrespect to Peterborough, we're not going to throw any shade right now. But
Not yet.
I think it's time we tee up next week, and next week is an interesting one because they're
Three
playing
games this week.
3 games this week. That's right. I did say 2 again, but of course I'm missing one. But one
Game.
on Wednesday. It's in Erie. Erie is a middle of the pack team. This is a game that you should win. They played
Yep.
Erie already this year. I think this is absolutely a game you should win. There is potential that, I think Gibbons could get the net, but I do think it's Ivan Kovic because there's a day's rest in between. So I think it's Ivan Kovic again. Do you think they should win this game? I think they should win this game, but do you think they're going to win this game?
I think they'll win this game. They always find a way to take out Erie pretty well.
Yeah, they
So
play
I
Erie
think
pretty good.
yeah,
In
they
Erie
do.
too.
So it should be a win for them.
Yeah. Then the next night, they are at home against Niagara. I'm pretty sure this is the first time the Niagara Ice Dogs are back in Brampton this season and in the last 12 years or whatever it is. I guess 13 years or
Yeah.
no, 11 years. Sorry. But they're playing the Niagara Ice Dogs. A very good team, Mark. They are, they're down to 4th right now, but I mean, they're in the mix. They're only 2 points out. They were in 1st for a long time this season.
I'm surprised about them.
They're
supposed to be like a middle of the pack team.
which they are technically in the standings, but no, they're playing very well. Their power play's clicking 23%. They've been really, really good. So this is going to be a tough game. This is going to be a character game. Do you want it or do you not, right? Like this is, you got to get up for a game like this, especially depending what happens Wednesday, win or lose, you're going to have to get up for this game.
Oh, they have to. And if they win all 3 games this week and they'll have 25 points,
Yep.
So they could have a chance. Again, they'll only be back in the fifth, but they'll be like 1 point back in Niagara, depending on their weekend games outcome too.
But that's the thing. I mean, you have a couple middling of the pack opponents this week, and I'm not technically Niagara is that, but I'm not going to group them into that. But Niagara, if you beat them and if you win all 3 games this week and you put yourself in a much better spot than you are now, ninth versus fifth, right? And heading into the World Juniors, like we said, you want to put yourself in a really good spot here for when your top guys leave, because you might be in real tough after that. But then they play the Sioux Greyhounds on Sunday
At 2 p.m.
at 2 p.m. It's a classic Sunday 2 p.m. game. Not too many of those this season.
Throwback.
But classic 2 p.m. against the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds. Again, another middle of the pack. 6th in the Western Conference. This should be a win. They have been playing well, 12-9-0. But this has to be a win. I think this is almost a win-out weekend. The only game I can see them losing is against the Niagara Ice Dogs. But I think this is a weekend where you have to lock in and you have to try and win every game. There's no excuses. There's no bad plays or mental mishaps or anything like that. All 20 guys or all 23 guys have to lock in on these 3 games.
Yes. Lock in and then go for another 3-game heater.
Yeah.
Win.
Just win. But
Just win.
what do you see from the last 2 games on the schedule here at home? I mean, there's a lot to be made out of home versus away for the Steelheads. I think there's sometimes it's easier to play on the road. There's a couple home games here that really, you need to make up some ground. So what do you think of these games coming up here?
I think for the 2 home games, they must win it. And you know what? They'll have the crowd behind it because lately they've been getting some, a little bit better crowd. So you'll get some fans behind, and just generate off of that. Generate off the crowd noise. Win, score first, dominate, don't let up. Do what you were doing before. Everything changed in this month, essentially.
Yeah. And I think just being responsible defensively will change a lot for them, right? Just putting more emphasis on that, but continue to do what they're doing offensively and just add more to that, like start clicking on the power play as well. But what I mean by, continue to do that offensively is, score first and early. They continue to do that. They'll find success in there somewhere. So very interesting weekend coming up here for the Steelheads, and we'll have you covered next week, that's for sure. But any final thoughts, Mark?
No, nothing. We covered everything. Other OHL news. I mean, they talked about an expansion, which it drew.
Could get
It
into that a
drew
little bit.
eyes.
Yep.
Yeah. It drew our interest. Because they want to expand into Toronto for a 3rd time. Which is interesting. So figured we'd give our takes on that.
Yeah. So new OHL commissioner Brian Crawford, basically there was an interview that was done last week, and he came out and said that he wants to expand. He wants expansion, and there's talks of expansion in the QMJHL as well, even the WHL. So it looks like, the traditional 22 teams, 18 teams, 20 teams, all this stuff, like it's going to grow in every single league. The CHL is going to get bigger, and it sounds like he wants to go to Toronto.
It could, but it doesn't work in the GTA. It's just because the Leafs are big. I don't even think it would work in Hamilton. If they were to go, even
it's interesting.
the Bulldogs struggled.
The Bulldogs,
They
they struggled, but it kind of was when they went deep in the playoffs. Like the atmosphere was crazy. But you're not going deep. Just the nature of the OHL, you're not going deep into the playoffs every single year. You're going to have those rebuild years every 2 years, 3 years, the cycle of the OHL, right?
Yeah.
But the other thing I will say is, if you put another team in Toronto, you're probably sharing corporate sponsors with Brampton, right? And I just don't know if that works as a business decision unless the league steps in as well. I don't know where they would play either, Mark. I mean, there's a couple options, but I don't think you could play out of Rico. I think that Mattamy is too small for an OHL team. I think that would be a bit of a mistake as well. So I thought that was a very interesting comment from the commissioner. But I don't know how you feel about that specifically.
Yeah, no. Those are the only 3 arenas I can think of is Rico, Ryerson at the Gardens, and there's a 3rd rink. If you're gonna if it's gonna be the majors, let's just type that. Let's be realistic here. If Toronto comes back, St. Mike's is coming back. They probably put them back at the college, but then again, they left St. Mike's College because of how small that rink was.
Right. That's the whole reason that they left as well. Is because it was the support, and the arena was very small. So to put them back in a rink like that in 2024 would be very odd. And in terms of the St. Mike's name, I think the school owns it again. So I don't know. There could be a partnership there. Who knows? But I mean, I think
Yeah,
it's possible
I
now.
can see. I mean, if they're what they've always
Yeah,
had it, right? So I can
yeah,
see the OHL probably. I'm just gonna speculate that. That's just coming from my speculation of like I think maybe they could or probably will partner up with St. Mike's if Toronto were to get an expansion.
yeah.
But I mean, what else would they go? I mean, they won't go to Rico because the Leafs said no to the majors all those years ago.
Yeah, and they can't now. The PWHL is there as well. So, and the Marlies play there. And we keep calling it Rico. It's Coca-Cola Coliseum now, but it's always Rico to me, I guess. But
Yeah, but I genuinely wonder where else they'd expand in further to like OHL. Like Toronto's one,
I could see it going back to Hamilton. I could. They just need that new building.
Hamilton.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I could see that happening. It won't be the
Um,
Bulldogs though. The Bulldogs, I think, are staying in Brantford. They're pretty set on that. So I think it's going to be it would be an expansion franchise that would go back to Hamilton if Hamilton was to get another team. It could also be the Steelheads in a couple of years, but we'll see how that plays out because I would like to see the second half of a season and attendance numbers before we make any judgments.
yeah, well, apparently they're doing pretty well with numbers, apparently, from what
Yeah, I
Elliot Kerr
think,
said on his interview.
yeah. So I think
So,
that they're doing better financially as well.
well, as well, the B-roll footage on that video, I'm guessing that they're putting a lot of steelhead stuff around the building now,
I think, yeah,
from what it looked like.
yeah.
So
I
it'll be
think
probably 5 years.
I think they moved into the CA. Yeah, the fact that they're putting stuff up tells me that they'll be there for a pretty significant amount of time, like 3 to 5 years. And I think they moved in there late in the summer, so that's why there's
Yeah.
nothing up there yet. And they're probably ironing out some details, I guess. But yeah, it's interesting. I don't know where else would get expansion.
Newmarket,
Newmarket maybe, right? Like there's a couple
Markham.
places that could work, but I think based on what's happened here with the Steelheads and other teams, the Battalion, and obviously now the Steelheads are not even in Mississauga anymore. I'm not sure it works in the GTA. I'm not sure a team in Toronto would work.
There's really not many cities you can go to. Like maybe
Especially that
Whitby.
have buildings. But Whitby, I think, would be
Yeah,
too close to Oshawa as well, right? But maybe they could support a team, right? I'm not, it's not out of the question, but it's definitely interesting.
it is, and I genuinely wonder where they would go. Like, or not, sorry, where an expansion would go.
Was
Because there's not many, like I said, there's not many cities you could think of.
not there's a lot, and it could work in a lot of cities. Like I didn't think Brantford would work necessarily. Like I knew that they could
I
put a
kind of
team
figured it
there.
would.
Yeah, and I knew it would if they went there, but I was like, how would do the logistics of the building work out? And then they renovated it, and I was like, okay, that
There
makes
was a
sense. I
rumor.
just
There
didn't
was a
know.
rumor they were going to put Niagara there a couple years ago.
There, yeah, that too. But Niagara,
That
they have a
shocked
good
me when
spot.
that came out.
They have a good spot there, Niagara and St.
Buffalo,
Catharines.
but I think Niagara wouldn't want that.
I think there's potential for another American team for sure, one or two. I think there's a lot of potential there. Buffalo, maybe. I mean, Erie has a team just down the road, so
Bring back the Plymouth Whalers.
you never know. You never know. There's a lot. Who
Those
would have thought
jerseys
that
were
Brampton?
sick.
Who would have thought that Brampton would have had a team in 2024, right? So,
I know.
there's always potential, but they might need a new building as well. But I don't know.
Yeah.
It's interesting. There's a lot of places around Ontario. I just asked the question, like, do they have the facilities for it, right? So
Oakville.
I
Put
don't
them
know.
at,
It's a little close.
you could put them at 16th mile.
They're a little.
So
It's a little close. Nice. It's a nice rink there. Community center. I
that
guess.
actually seats 5,000 people, I think.
Yeah. So pretty big, but I think too close to Brampton. But
All right, we get a rivalry going.
that'd be nice. The battle of the GTA as well. When you never know, it could
It
be with
would be.
Toronto as well. So
It would
if
be.
they want to do expansion, if it works, it works. But we will see, right? So.
Hmm.
But I think that's it for this week, Mark. Any final thoughts on expansion or the Steelheads going into next week?
I mean, I'm not gonna complain if Toronto gets the team back.
No, it would be a
It'd be-
healthy rivalry again. It would
I
be
could,
fun.
I could pull out the old jerseys if they do get that name back.
Yeah, and it would be
Vintage.
the actual Toronto St. Mike's Majors. So
They
that'd be
could bring back those jerseys. Those jerseys were sick too.
they were. I love the blue. on
Oh
those.
my God,
But
we've come a long way.
yes, it is different. But I think that's it for this week, Mark. The Steelheads have a huge weekend coming up, and they're going to have to capitalize on that. But we will see you all for another episode next week.